Welcome to 2013. So far, a little bit of a rocky year. Certainly, we're making us all question about happiness, but it's been delightful to open the show last night. I'm pleased you're all here today. Montalvo is just starting to embark on a 2-year thematic program that will explore well-being. We're going to think about the well-being of our environment, the ecology we sit on, 175 acres. We're going to think about the well-being of our community and how to continue inviting our artists to engage the community in unexpected ways, in ways that will stir up all of the things that bring about well-being and explore exactly what does that mean? What does it look like? What does it feel like? And then sort of for the self, what is that about? This, I think, is an important theme for us to discover. I think we can take it in a lot of different directions. I think it applies to people who are very young, and I think it applies to people who are very old. And this is who's coming to Montalvo, who's spending time with us. So I'm delighted to have this conversation. I'm delighted to have Carole here today. I'm not making any introductions, but I want to thank our artists for all of the work they put into the exhibition. And I want to encourage you, if you haven't seen the exhibition yet, to make time after our talk to go over and walk through, take one of the flyers, and look at all the programming, because there's all sorts of moments throughout the spring to bring us back together and continue sort of this experience. I want to thank Vaden for all of her work, keeping us organized, on track, and fabulous, and Donna Carole for her sort of thoughtfulness in putting together the show. So, enjoy the conversation.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today on this lovely sunny day. So we're gathered here today to celebrate the opening of our new exhibition and also to explore the topic of happiness, what that exactly means and how we can foster it in our lives. And I'm very delighted to have with me today a great group of people. We've got Carole Pertofsky here. Carole is Director of Wellness and Health Promotion Services at Vaden Health Center at Stanford University. She also teaches a number of courses on happiness and health, and she oversees Stanford's wellness and positive psychology courses. She also recently organized a conference about happiness at Stanford, so we're delighted to have her expertise here to share with us today. I'm also joined by Wong. Christine is an interdisciplinary artist. She works in installation, sculptures, multiples, and works on paper, and she has been exploring for a long time the ideas, the themes of optimism and pessimism. Yeah. She is currently based in New York, but she's a long-time resident of Oakland. Happy to know that's in this area. We're also joined by Susan O'Malley. Susan is a San Jose resident, and she creates socially based projects through which she seeks to incite hope, optimism, and a sense of interconnectedness in our lives. And in addition to being an artist, Susan was until recently the curator of the Institute of Contemporary Art in San Jose. So very happy to have her here. And finally, Leah Rosenberg. Leah is based in San Francisco. She is an interdisciplinary artist, and she makes paintings, paint-based sculptures, and cakes, which kind of examine the effects of time and the physiological impacts of colour. I should also mention that she's head pastry chef at Blue Bottle Coffee Rooftop at SF MoMA. Susan, Leah, and Christine have all spent time with us in residence at the Lucas Artist Residence in Down Hill, and they have developed together this new exhibition that we have on at the Project Space Gallery. It features mostly new works that they've produced through the process of being here and collaborating with one another and thinking through this theme of happiness. And so I'm just very grateful for all the work that they've done to this. So we're going to start our conversation today with a work by Susan O'Malley entitled Happiness is Smiling. Then we're going to have a little talk by Carole, where she's going to introduce us to some of the sort of key topics and themes about happiness. And then we're going to have a little bit of discussion about some specific works that the artists created for the exhibition and sort of talk a little bit about how the works relate to the theme of contentment. So I'm going to now hand
Sort of kicked off by the advent of imaging, like fMRIs and really, really detailed blood studies. So, like 8 years ago, George Phelan is a pretty well-known psychiatrist at Harvard. And this is John Lennon, not George Phelan. And he did a study in the literature, the psychiatric, psychological, and neuroscientific literature 8 years ago, and found thousands of references to depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, bad moods, crankiness, and a handful of references to hope, optimism, zero on joy or gratitude. I am really thrilled to be here among these incredible artists, and the good news is that we're starting to study these positive emotions and see what the impact is on our brain, on our biochemistry, and ultimately in our mind, in our hearts, in our bodies, and as they show up in our lives. So these are very exciting times. John Lennon was kind of onto it all in the 60s. I love this. When I was 5 years old, my mom always told me that happiness was the key to life. When I went to school, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grow up. I wrote down happy. They told me I didn't understand the assignment, and I told them they didn't understand at 5. Sure. as opposed to being selfish, it's a gift that we give to life, that we give to our own hearts, and that we give to others who are in our presence. The Dalai Lama says, as we'll be seeing, the entire purpose of life is to be happy. So let's take a look at defining happiness and what makes you happy. So I'm going to invite you to greet the person you're sitting next to. And you may already know them, which is fine. And everybody just take a minute each and just talk about what makes you happy. It can be a list, you can go into depth, whatever you want to do, each one for a minute. Share what makes you happy.
You can follow suit, and a phrase will do.
interact with human beings, and I was in Belfast during the height of the IRA bombings, and I went to the city, and the city was full, but nobody would look at you, and nobody would talk to you. And it was the most separatist feeling I've ever had from the human interaction. And so it just came up in conversation today.
Thank you.
So I was
Connection.
I would like to second that and just say making time to talk about it. I think your question said just talk to your next person. Just that short time, that just made me happy. That just made me happy.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Maybe two more. Somebody from this side. Ooh, let this side of the room. Yeah, thank you.
Teaching, but I guess more specifically just being in a classroom with students. It's stressful and challenging, but there's so many great moments of social connection, and usually at least one shared belly laugh about something. And I think there's just also the sustained relationship, like starting with a group of students at the beginning of a semester and working with them and developing this relationship, as well as learning. There's just a whole kind of delicious combination of things that happens in that time.
Delicious.
It's really great. It makes me happy.
Thank you. Okay, well, this was a beautiful list, and what I wanted to share with you was bliss comes in many, many forms, and some of these have to do with social connections, some of them have to do with recreation, some of them have to do with art, music, nature, sensual delights. Some of them have to do, yeah. And a deeper connection with life itself and what we're doing. The grandfather of positive psychology, which is in a loose term what this field is called, that encompasses some thought in psychology, some thought in neuroscience, and some thought in philosophy. Martin Seligman is kind of the granddaddy of this. He was the president of the American Psychological Association. In his first iteration as a psychologist, some of you may know the expression learned helplessness. Familiar? Yeah, I'm seeing that. So this was his work, and he studied the responses of dogs to getting shocked. I don't like those experiments, but at some point neither did he. And what he found was that in a cohort of dogs that couldn't control the shock, no matter what they did, they would just lie down and give up. It was awful. And at one point, he noticed that in every cohort, there might have been one dog who didn't have that response. And it changed his mindset. Why are we constantly studying what doesn't work? What can we learn by studying what is different about that dog? So he actually began this query into what are the positive emotions and how do they elevate our lives and contribute to life itself. And of course the field has burst open, this very new field since then. There's a lot we still don't know, but there are some things that are kind of breaking away. And when we think about happiness, I really love this because it opens up the conversation. We think of happiness as pleasurable moments, right? Yeah? But like we all know at this stage of life, that it's like a treadmill, a happiness treadmill. We get this much happiness and then we want more, and then we want more, and then we want more. And that is referred to as the hedonic, as in hedonism, happy treadmill. These other two, we need plenty of pleasurable experiences and moments. People who are happy look for the good and savor the good. But, or and, they're also seeking activities in that, you use the word delicious experience of losing yourself in the moment. This self-consciousness, the inner thoughts kind of quiet down, time flows, and you flow with what you're engaged with. And then the third quality are life experiences that shape our life with meaning, with substance, with purpose. And these are sort of the three large containers that we find the happiest people seek, and they establish a sense of deep emotional well-being. Common misperceptions and myths that are running currents that frustrate so many people, and we kind of have them. Happy people don't make tons of money. Some of the research indicates that experience of well-being requires the ability to get one's basic needs met and that of their families. And that we do see that people really do suffer when that criteria is not met. And gives us all a reason to seek more economic equity in our lives and the lives of others. Happy people don't stress about health and beauty. They seek to be healthy, they seek to be fit, but it's a subjective, not an objective, I must look this way, be this way. That tends to depress well-being. Surprisingly, education is not causal with happiness. People who have the educational requirement to earn enough money to be able to take care of themselves and their family has once that criteria is met, there's no effect on happiness. So for example, people who perhaps choose not to have a college education, have a wonderful skill, have a job where they can use that skill, they find flow, they find engagement, they come home, love being the coach of their kids' sports team, do just as well in life in terms of their sense of being happy and fulfilled. Ethnicity, no effect, and don't bother moving to Florida or Las Vegas. What we do know is there are some external factors. Ed Diener is a psychologist who studies this. In general, people who live in impoverished dictatorships do not experience strong senses of personal well-being. People that live in resourceful democracies do. People who are happy with a life partner, this does not say have a life partner. People who have life partners and are unhappy typically do not experience strong levels of well-being as much as people who are happy with a life partner or those who don't have a life partner and are quite content living a single life. Fulfilling social networks. This was a thing that was mentioned. Boy, we're social creatures. We need each other. We need to be around each other. We learn, we grow, and it is causal. Seeking meaning and purpose. People who keep perspective on life. You know, many of you know that wonderful Mary Oliver poem, what will you do with this one wild and precious life? And to understand that all of us have that one wild and precious life, and we interact with each other with respect, dignity, and people who seek and savor. And this is Christine's work. Contrary to what we usually believe, the best moments in our lives are not the passive, receptive, relaxing pleasures, my editorial comment, that are sold to us by advertising. The best moments usually occur when a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. Those tend to be the experiences that engage flow. We just need to be challenged. So, there are certain qualities and habits of mind. As His Holiness Dalai Lama said, the entire purpose of our lives is to be happy. And I have a handout here, you're welcome to take at the end, that really goes into some of these experiences, what the research right now is saying about it, and a few suggested books. I want to say this is by no stretch of the imagination an exhaustive list, but it's here for you. And these are some of the things I mentioned. A new field that's coming up, the next up-and-coming field is sort of led by a psychologist whose name is Christine Neff. And what she's looking at is the phenomena, I think that's very, very common, We're very compassionate toward other people, and we are ruggedly hard on ourselves. She's doing some research in terms of looking at what is the impact of this inner critic and this perfectionism on ourselves and our society. Not just our own personal world, but aggregate. What happens to society? And this idea of self-compassion and self-kindness is something that we are really focusing on and looking at. Both, all of us can use more self-kindness in our lives. Mindfulness meditation and mindfulness practices simply is being here in the moment, as opposed to being caught up in our own thoughts about what's going to happen, what could happen, the ability to relax into the moment and savor this precious moment. Compassion and empathy. We're talking about irrational exuberance, and that is the theme today. I want to take out a moment, though, and talk about people who have experience of deep emotional well-being. When they see suffering, do not go aversive to it. People who see suffering know how to express compassion and how to do whatever we can to relieve suffering of others, of people, of animals, of the state of the world. So I think another common misperception that people who are happy are shallow is really people who have deep emotional well-being inside themselves want to extend that to other beings in life. Related to that is happy people tend to have a mindset that during times of adversity, we're reactive and we go through periods of anger, fear, difficult emotions. But at the end of it, some people feel victimized or they want to victimize. And what we know is well-being comes with the mindset of what can I learn and how can I find some strength in this experience to take into my own heart and give to others. Learned optimism when we're going into the future, and the indications are that there is a possibility of goodness coming, of focusing on that goodness, social connections, forgiveness, resilience, and some degree of spirituality. For some it's religion, for others it's a belief in humanity. But the sense of there is a larger self. These are the qualities that we know. And again, Christine's work, think good thoughts, fortify good attitudes.
Thank you very much, Carole, for that. So I'm just going to open up a new PowerPoint here. We're going to segue into talking with our artists gathered here today about the works they produced for the exhibition and how their works kind of can connect to some of the things that Carole just raised. So we're going to start with Christine. We've got an image of an extract of one of the pieces that we created for the exhibition, Pertofsky in United Theories. And I'd like you to just start by telling us a little bit about this piece and just, the importance of positive and negative emotions, optimism, pessimism in your work, since that's such a focus on your practice.
Sure. Well, I wanted to start with this little detail of the drawing to basically do in a very simple way what Carole just did for us in a much more depth and breadth kind of way. Well, I've been exploring optimism and pessimism in my work for the past few years, and then I also have been focusing on positive psychology and happiness in the past fewer years. And I made installations, sculptures, and works with paper, often using very common materials to kind of how something can be so familiar and yet so elusive. Like, we all know what happiness is because we experience it, but we also like to have the strategies and the wherewithal and everything to maintain that happiness. It's a whole other ball game. So I've done a bunch of different series of works, and you saw some of the written texts that are just kind of things to promote positive habits. signs, I think, that people live with. And then I also have a series of drawings called Positive Signs. And these are all taken from my readings in positive psychology. And I'll take like scraps, like quotes or scraps or make diagrams of these things that I think might translate to people who, just as a thing to remind people and put to use in their own lives. So they're gel pens on gridded vellum, and I had done a series of 60 of them, about 8.5 by 11. And then for this show, I just wanted to do one big one, and that's in the gallery, and it's called Positive Signs, United Theories. And the reason it's not called United Theory is because I have no science background. I don't want to like make a universal, unified theory. But I can just try and bring together a bunch of different threads. So Martin Seligman, Carole already mentioned, has a theory called PERMA, which is positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. And within this kind of overall structure, I made a 5-part Venn diagram where many other psychologists work and kind of plays in. And it's interesting to see like just the interrelations and how much like meaning and like how like different things are related. So like relationships and meaning, like people derive so much meaning out of their relationships. People derive meaning out of their accomplishments. So all these different things, and then people are able to accomplish stuff when they feel engaged with an activity. But all these things are so complex, and I really liked being able to kind of look at it all together. And I wanted to pick out this fragment because I think a lot of people think of happiness as basically pleasure or positive emotion, and don't necessarily think like losing yourself in woodwork or like just like zoning out when you're cooking or something is part of that. But there's a little fragment here that kind of talks about positive emotions. The dominant popular connotations of happiness is inextricably bound with, it's like smaller than when it's in the actual drawing. Being in a cheerful mood. Positive emotion is the rock bottom meaning of happiness, and that's Martin Seligman. So taking this idea, we wanted to kind of talk about pleasure in the show and also talk about everything else too. And we kind of broke up the gallery into 2 spaces to kind of think about this kind of like, these 2 kind of sides of it. So if we move on to the next image, I have 2 works, and you'll notice a lot of the works in the galleries are kind of twinned or mirrored across the 2 spaces. So one that you'll encounter in the blue room, the first room, is this one called Mega Pennant. It's this vinyl sewed together to make a really big pennant. It's very colorful, very transparent, and it casts this like lovely, colorful shadow. And then the next work that it's twinned in the other room is Mega Pentimento. Pentimento is a painting term for when you paint a color and then you paint over it again, but the other color still peeks through. And so these are the same 5 colors in that first Mega Pennant, but it's layered 5 times. And so all those colors are created from just those 5 colors. So, and you can see it's a lot darker, also more opaque, and then the shadow it casts is a lot heavier. So for me, it's kind of thinking through all those relationships of all those things and interconnections and kind of the work of happiness as well, not just like the cheeriness of happiness. And then the last slide I have is what a lot of us had just been through, the direction of the slide. And you like savoring pleasure is something that you think is very intuitive, but I think it's actually not. I live in New York. A lot of people get so obsessed with like, oh my God, what just happened? I can't even walk down the sidewalk, get out of my way. And it's just like, wait a minute. You're alive, you're healthy, people love you. You know, there's beauty in the world, even if it's an amazing work of art at the Met, or if it's just like a tacky little rhinestone So, yeah.
I'd like to ask you, so looking at these works here, we've got this reoccurring theme of flags and banners. What's the significance of that? Why are you so attracted to that idea?
I'm interested a lot in decoration and the urge to decorate and how it kind of cuts across all classes, and like everyone has like their little decorative plates, whether it's like a dessert spoon from the Mall of America or like a little, like Delaware 18th century like antique from Sotheby's or whatever. And I think that urge to, like artworks are objects, and objects can live these lives, can be part of people's lives in a way where there's like an emotional investment. And I think making art about what is sentiment can be seen as sentimental, but then also kind of, I want to like question why sentimentality is viewed with such skepticism, and then, but at the same time, like recognizing like raising a flag and looking upward. There's something I think physically, and like that happens with your cognitive metaphors, that is a very basic like human sense of like lifting up, being free. Yeah.
Well, I know I've asked you this before, but I'm really intrigued by the title of this piece, The Rationalist Ignorance, and thinking about Chairman of the Federal Reserve, Alan Greenspan, and how he used that term. He was talking about, the stock, fervent speculation on the stock market. And I was reading a little bit about this book by Barbara Enrick, I think her name is, Bright-Sided, How Positive Thinking is Undermining America. And she was talking a little bit about how this kind of inability to recognize the possibility of failure and just keep gung-ho going was one of these underappreciated reasons why the economy collapsed the way it did in 2008. I know we talked about this and you said that there isn't a connection here, but I wondered if you had something else to say about it, and also whether, Carole, you have some thoughts about that sort of positive taken to its extreme and its sort of impact.
Well, Barbara Ehrenreich, Martin Seligman actually addressed her book in his latest book, and he was saying like basically she didn't find positive thinking useful in her recovery from illness, and he's basically saying like your personal experience doesn't account for all this other research that was done. That's that, and then as far as Elliot Greenspan, I just like the phrase, like I just like the two words taken out of their context, and just the idea that like exuberance should be rational, I think is really funny.
I think that we're such neophytes in happiness that we don't even have language. I hope in Greek at least there are more words to describe these shades of meaning of happiness. And I read Barbara Ehrenreich's book, and I really enjoy her as an author, but I feel like she really missed the mark. There's quite a difference between learned optimism and unbridled greed. And that's Wall Street class. I find this not unusual that terminology gets so confused, and we have such a limited vocabulary for these shades, these very subtle shades of meaning as seen in the blue room and the other room, that we just kind of collapse everything into a very sloppy use of language. And I think that it then just becomes a defense for cynicism. I think there's this theory of broaden and build, that when you take something positive and you can savor it, that it opens your heart and you become more compassionate, you become more empathetic to others. You want to relieve situations that you feel like you can have some control over. So I find it just tragic that we conflate some of these ideas and conflate something that in essence is good with something in essence that's dangerously out of control, like yeah.
So I just put a little image of one of your written texts there, because you mentioned them, and also because I think they also take on a kind of pattern that was mentioning before. But that's a nice little segue into Susan, because Susan's work, Susan also deals with text in her work, like Christine. So Susan, you created this as space for you with these cushions featuring texts with positive affirmations. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about this work and thinking.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't really know anything about happiness when that there was a science behind it or positive psychology, but I've been working a lot with ideas of optimism in my work without, as sort of more of an intuitive way of practice rather than kind of knowing the science or the theory behind things. And so I've been doing inspirational posters that have hung both in galleries and public spaces that are offering words of encouragement, really, and are, like Christine Science, kind of like a break or an interruption or a way of intervening to kind of remind people of these things that we already know, but perhaps just kind of seeing it on a sign somewhere with like this really bold Helvetica type treatment that you see in a stop sign or on an advertisement might cause pause to think about the language itself. So it's funny when Donna asked me to participate in this, I was actually having a really hard time thinking about kind of happiness, maybe because where I was in my life, and I was thinking more about the spectrum of things and kind of like the journey of getting to like a brighter place, and also really influenced by mindfulness and practice of mindfulness and practice of mindful meditation as well, were things that I've been thinking about with both of the projects that I did here. So it was really important to me that I created a space in the gallery that would kind of open up the possibility for these ideas. And I really started out kind of thinking about creating more of a sacred space, or like a healing space is what I was calling it. But that became really heavy-handed for me and a little bit too much, and maybe like, I was like, wait, am I doing like frou-frou, la la land? and which is fine, I'm like thinking together. But anyways, what I wanted to do actually, what happened, how it resolved itself, was thinking about our body in relationship to a space, and also in particular to a gallery. I wanted to think about how people could actually sit down on the floor in the gallery and ground themselves in a space and have these objects of comfort there for them to relax or recline or reflect on the text that were actually on the pillows. So this is a space that can be played with or interacted with, or it's been interesting to see how people have interacted with it, mostly playfully right now, which is really wonderful to see, because I think the nature of the colors and the familiarity of a pillow and what you kind of use a pillow for is really wonderful. But also I really love the idea of someone being able to actually relax and recline in the gallery space as well.
And so this performance that you did at the beginning of our conversation today, this also relates to a space for you in some way.
In a way, yeah. I mean, I think the thinking about kind of darkness and lightness at the same time. I think like trick your brain and smile is such kind of a really amazing statement to say, because it's sort of you're trying to deceive yourself into this thing to make yourself feel better, and that is coming from a place of pain or suffering, perhaps, and that there's something really beautiful and deep about that sentiment that I think is really interesting, and definitely played into thinking about the space. And in both of the projects that I did, one is about reclining and resting, and one is about walking and moving and actually ascending up a mountain. So I also installed signs that go up the trail here at Montalvo. There's beautiful park grounds that I was lucky enough to be able to install 9 signs that go up to the lookout point, which is about a 15-minute walk from the gallery up to the lookout point. And it's walking uphill, and the signs are again similar in a way that the pillow. There's some repeat with the language on the pillows, but also they're referencing the space of being out in nature and being in the forest. This one is actually more of kind of, it says you look up, and then this beautiful moment. So in a way, hopefully intervening people along the pathway to bring their mind to this moment or this place or their breath or the trees above you, and find pleasure in these really small little things that you normally experience on a walk in nature, but can perhaps heighten that experience a little bit more along that journey.
I really appreciated you taking a project out of the gallery onto the grounds, and it was making me think about a lot of research that's been done on nature deficit disorder and how that's impacting particularly children just not spending anywhere near as much time outside anymore, and the effects that's having on their mental and physical health with obesity and attention deficit disorder. So I thought that having this piece out there as well as kind of a little nod to that, to the importance of nature, the importance of engaging with nature and well-being. But one of the things I'd be interested to hear both you and Carole address is a little bit with this difference between peppy, positive affirmations and mindfulness. Could you go to speak a little?
What do you mean by that?
Well, I've read a little bit, very little, but about how there's been some research that indicates that peppy affirmations or visualizations don't necessarily have beneficial impacts on your well-being. In fact, sometimes it can be adverse. And I was looking at a recent book by Oliver Berkman. It's called The Anecdote: Happiness for People Who Can't Stand Positive. He talks about this alternative negative path to happiness and success, which involves embracing things we spend our lives trying to avoid, which actually seems, although I've only read a little bit of it, seems to be a little bit about mindfulness, sort of being in the moment. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, or Carole, if you would like to.
Well, I mean, I think everything we put out there in the world, like there's going to be one way of reacting and another way of reacting, and there's going to be just a spectrum of ways that people kind of respond to things. But I think it's kind of funny because actually, I do think there is sort of like a sense of humor about a lot of like the inspirational signs that I have, because there are things that like, and I think maybe part of the treatment with like the colors and the gradients and things like that, and sort of the ridiculousness of the pillows too plays into that, playfulness, and also kind of a little bit of a wink. But I also really sincerely like love these sayings too, and I do actually want people to be able to receive them in a way that feels sincere. But yeah, I mean, I think that people can kind of take them as like, the hang in there with the little baby kitten, or however they want to do that. And I love the hang in there with baby kittens too. So.
It's a really complex question because the brain is such a darn complex organ. And so you think about emotions, positive emotions, as having this very high positive end. So like words like elation and exuberance and joy are high-end positive emotions. But what are less intense positive emotions? to try to like what students do, you know, at Stanford, especially undergraduates, work hard, party hard. What does that mean? So like you're in your brain, like thinking all week, and then what do you do on the weekends? What is party hard like? You know, what does that mean? Like getting loaded, and in some way it's dangerous because they start thinking that happiness is only those peak pitch, high intensity, and it gets depleted. So let's think about the feeling you get when you forgive. We have one of the, you know, experts on forgiveness in the room, Pertofsky. That when you forgive someone, it's a gentle, quiet sense of well-being. You know, when you extend compassion to someone or to yourself. Mindfulness is the experience of deeply dwelling in quiet joy. Quiet joy. And there are a gazillion research studies. I don't have it in this slide set, but I have a baby like with electrodes on his head and a tower car with electrodes on his head. He's considered the happiest person in the world. So you have these monks who spend a great deal of their time in contemplative practice, reflection, and meditation. And their brain changes are amazing. Their brains are different than ours. But I think I said all that to say this, that in life, we deplete those high-intensity emotions rather quickly. The brain becomes depleted. But I think with the mindfulness, the quieter joy, it's much more sustainable. And I think we see this, you know, is in the aging process and the maturation process, you know. It's not like we don't squeal with life the way like a 6-month does every hour. Those are rare. But hopefully as we mature, the quieter joys become daily companions, hourly companions. So I mean, I guess that is one of the things, and just one answer. I'm sure there are many.
This is probably a good moment to segue into Leah, especially since we've got an image of Leah. Yes. So, Leah, in the exhibition, you sort of colour and light have been a really important part of your contribution to the show. We see here one of your illuminated stripes pieces. And I'd just like to hear, you know, what was your approach to the exhibition?
Well, I guess as I sort of my process as a student working has been sort of to pare things down into a package that's like a few things rather than doing, you know, I have lots of different things I love to do, but how do you incorporate all of those things in one and make it like a unified thing where you do it? So I broke it down and really just wanted 3 things, like light, color, and stripes. and those things can kind of, how many different ways can they exist and how can people use them? And in thinking about happiness too, like, well, we also think about generosity a lot and what is it to give something to someone or make something for someone. And I think color does that a lot, and particularly light. And I was sort of looking into the light boxes that are used for like seasonal effects disorder therapy, and like the idea of like a stripe painting illuminated, and the longer that you stand in front of it, the happier you become. You know, and I do work at the museum, so I've witnessed people consuming art or looking at art a lot, and I'm always really kind of enamored by ways that people interact with that, or you know, how long they look, or what they get out of that experience, and whether they're looking at art for a minute, are they a guest at the museum, or are they going to end up in a gift shop as a consumer? Like all of these different things, I sort of just thinking about ways people look at art and what they get out of that moment. And so I also, I mean, so that sort of answer your question if you're coming out anytime. But yeah, and then there's a stool in front of it to sit down, and the pieces hung quite low, so it's sort of at your face at the distance. But
You've got your stripe there too.
and yeah, and so I was thinking about other ways of like what a painting could be, and I was invited over to a woman I know, her house, and they live on the ground floor, and there was a painting on the wall, and it was, sky blue, a couple of clouds, and I really liked it, and then noticed, like, they really, because they were on the ground floor, didn't have a window, and they said that that was actually their stand-in for a window, and it really made me think about sort of the things that cause happiness and misery is really like the environment that surrounds us, like the shared consumer, the colors of our walls, like our access to light and nature. And so I started to think about utilitarian artworks, and and you can see the brush strokes on these painted slabs, and I sort of like that because it distinguishes it from just something that you get at IKEA. And I like the idea of sitting on a painting, and then it's sort of maybe a surprise once you get there. So.
Yeah, well, these stripes also make me think about this idea of the spectrum, that we were talking about, this happiness spectrum, that it's not all just the bright, but there's also these more muted shades to it. But I'm going to come back to some other pieces later. In the meantime, Carole, do you have anything to share just about the impact of colour on our happiness?
It's not a field that I didn't know about other than as a person. And the feeling, I think, in terms of what happens in the brain, the different frequencies of light and color, it must be very profound. I've been listening to on tape Angle of Repose from Rosenberg, and I don't know if you've read it, and there's this very graphic scene that happens in a coal mine, and he describes the deprivation of light and the deprivation of everything but that smell, the smell of coal and tar. And I can just feel my spirits just sagging in this environment and what it must be like to be without color and be without light. So something like this, I just look at it and it's delightful. It just fills us with this wonder at the beauty of the way the world is shaped.
Yeah, and it's interesting, a lot of the studies about colour's relationship to our, that we associate certain colours with certain feelings, like yellow with energy and optimism, and blue with a sort of peace, or maybe then a little melancholy.
I like to think of color too as like, oh, this color is reminds you of someone, and then you're in that piece somehow. And like the selection of colors for these, I really delight in certain colors next to each other, or paired with each other. And for this one, I really tried to use colors that I didn't particularly like next to ones that I did like, just because these benches were not for me. They were sort of for other people that I don't know, and just hoping that there was something in there for a bunch of different strangers.
So this is another piece you mentioned, the exhibition, the Seeing Composers. Can you tell us a bit about this piece?
Yeah, this kind of sums it up in terms of making something that's super happy, and then, or for me, makes me very happy, and then a major disappointment because they end up going so fast. When you say please take one, people do, and that's great. But so the idea, when we were talking about what we wanted to do with the gallery, there's also this element of extending it outside the gallery. And with Susan's walk, like how maybe I could have sort of these little interventions. And I found this paper that was colored already embedded with wildflower seeds. And so I thought it would be nice for people here to be able to contribute to something, get a gift, decide whether or not they wanted to keep it for themselves, or be part of something that's like more collaborative and plant the seeds here, come back, return, and see like a bunch of color grown over, after some time. And
directing people to plant, well, not directing, but inviting them to plant these seeds at the beginning of Susan's
block. Yeah. So if you pick one up, the idea is to go around the back, pull up a colored stick, dig a hole, stick the seed in, cover it up, and then come back and spray. Yeah, I enjoy the sort of look of them in terms of like what was sort of like a banner or just like a collection of colored sticks, but that there's something embedded in them, that it's another layer. So.
Yeah, there's like this sort of idea, as we were saying, that it's not instant, that it's something that you put something in and then you wait, and then you really do it.
But yeah, and that sort of, is why I'm interested also in pastry and food things, is that there's this difference between cake. I mean, there's a lot of similarities, but layering, time, color, but that there's this difference where cake, you eat it, you consume it, it's over, it's gone, and then painting, it's up there or an object is out there for sort of cognitive judgment and has sort of a longer life. So those two things together, I think, are kind of interesting.
And also let's talk about this piece that you have in the show. So we see these sort of strips of paint. We'll talk more about these sort of slowly decompressing over time. And it does conjure up some sort of feelings of sadness. So why did you what were your thoughts about putting this piece in the show?
Well, I had made these party packs, paint party packs, where I used all of I made these paint sculptures, and there's a lot of sort of failed ones, so I would cut them up and twist them around dowels or hole punch them to make them into the celebratory material that really inevitably it doesn't do what it's supposed to do because it's heavy and sticky. So I had these already, and I really like it as a mass, and the longer it sits together over time, the more it sort of settles into itself and becomes like one object. And I like this in sort of the same room as Christine's ribbon pieces, because it's sort of like unraveled ribbon. And then I've never put it under a vitrine before, so I like that too, because you can't really get at the material, even though it's very tactile, so it's all made of paint. And it seems like under a vitrine it's this artifact or this like sort of moment under glass that happened, like a party happened, but you weren't there, and then never be there. We were invited. So yeah, it's sort of like at first, because of the color and the sort of materiality of it, it's alluring, and then you kind of think about it more, and you over time, like it becomes less of a sort of deflated.
Yeah, well again, it sort of makes me think about this whole spectrum, I think, that you need to experience these moments of, it's how you respond to these moments of failure or difficulty that's also a very integral part of well-being.
Yeah, there's an artist, Martin one, but Turner Prize, but I think about that piece from time to time where all he did was turn on the lights and off the lights and on and off, and I just feel like that's such a clever kind of simple gesture that compresses like really like kind of an anxiety and also like happiness or lightness. So I like things that sort of do the opposite thing at the same time.
I also want to show this image. So for those of you that weren't here for the opening reception yesterday, Leah created this wonderful arrangement of edible art. Leah, why did you do this, Leah? Can you tell us about it?
Well, for like the ways that I got into it, maybe if anyone cares, I can tell you later. But I often have an edible component. I actually can't think of any time I have an edible component to go goes for me. So and for me, it's like sort of what I was talking about. When this is gone at the end of the night, but the show is still up. But everyone has, and all of the different colored cookies were different flavors. So just giving people another way of kind of connecting a moment with the artwork. Another sense, I think, helps you remember it.
Yeah. So I'm out of time a little bit here. So before I turn this over to questions from the audience, I just wanted to ask you, or four of you, if you have any questions for one another.
I had a thought.
Yeah. Or a thought.
Well, I think you had, like when you had asked a question about like positive affirmations versus, was it mindfulness or something? But it was like a thing where it was kind of like, you know, I think like positive psychology is always trying to distinguish itself from positive thinking, which is not that kind of science. And it's the like, what did you say, la la land? But I think also too, like I think a lot about works of art and how they work, like how people approach works of art, especially contemporary art where it's not exactly clear, like this is a painting and you look at it and then you get a narrative or whatever, but like you don't always know what you are walking into when you're looking at an object or an installation. And I think about the kind of leap that is required of the viewer, and that I think of that as an opportunity for enacting trust or skepticism. And I kind of see a parallel with like that as like a space for a choice. Like either you're gonna be optimistic and say like this might be worth my time and attention, or like this is not for me, I can't deal with this. And I think in parallel, the idea that to be smart or to be critical, you have to be skeptical of sentiment, is also like somehow ingrained. And I don't know, it's like rather than being skeptical of sentiment, I would rather be skeptical of the skepticism of sentiment.
Question for Leah. Susan and I were talking while everybody was sitting down about this phenomenon of when, about the exhibit, like you throw yourself into the project and it's so exciting, and then the project happens and it's like this little experience of micro grief, you know? I'm wondering if people eat your wonderful cookies.
You know what, I think it's more of like a selfish generosity. Because, you know, it's, and this is like the conundrum, because why generosity and happiness are so interesting, because they're possible to kind of, you know, you pursue, if you pursue happiness and that's all you do, you're going to be disappointed in the end. And it's sort of impossible to be generous and give something to someone without you feeling like, well, it has been said. Like, I feel like I can give it, and it makes me happy to some degree, but it really is for you. But you know, like Derrida says, you know, like there's no such thing, because it's really just about you feeling good when you give something to someone. So I think that there's like parallels to that, and I think for me me being behind the table serving something allows me to almost perform or explain the work with sort of a prop. Honestly, or it's like an entryway. It's like another, because it's everybody needs to eat, and everybody has sort of a connection with food, and where some people might have a hard time accessing artwork. And so I think I've witnessed this happen where they might not know what, you know, a neon, like the history of neon, like whatever, neon works. But they've eaten cookies, and you know, like one night, or last night, someone ate a saffron cookie. He knew like at that moment that it was saffron, and had this memory of his grandmother making saffron bread at Christmas time. And so you also, like, I guess it is for me too to get those stories, and I think that's so interesting to that it just sort of kind of lowers the barricade, or like the you you know, we were talking about sort of the way people act at openings, wasn't it? Yeah. And like the way that you're supposed to be. And I think it's always nice to kind of interject on that kind of pattern.
So I think we could just open it up for some questions, and I think Leah has something to share with you.
Yes.
While we
Take one and pass it down.
Yes.
My question is also for Leah. She's been talking, and sorry, it's the first question for you again. What I noticed in your work that you actually use colors in combination and in relation with each other. Like in your bench, it was interesting to me that you said, I combine colors that I don't like and colors that I like. But the combination, for example, doesn't work for me.
It doesn't work for you.
No, it doesn't work for me.
I'm sorry.
No. I think that's the whole point, that's how you react to colors, right? So my question for you is, have you ever thought about just one color? I'm coming from a culture that, for example, houses had to be just one color. And then I moved to England, and every room was a different color. And I was shocked that people color their bathroom sometimes pink, having liquid pink. But then I came to California. It's still like some rooms are different colors, but then you go to a house that the whole house is one color. So your relationship with color is a very complicated, complex relationship. So for me, seeing your work, like the confetti, it has this baby blue in it that's depressing. But baby blue is the most beautiful color. You should look at it that way. But it's not. You know, it's like, oh my god, baby blue, I'm depressed.
Well, I think that's interesting.
So,
it's like
yeah, so
a matter of taste, right? I mean, and you know, I did try in my last year of grad school to make a painting for, I did a survey and sent it out to all of the students in my class. And, you know, your favorite food is, your favorite color, what, you know, these things. And I went through them all, picked out 4 colors that identified that one person, and put it in a painting. So it was a painting about us, for us. And then I thought, like, actually, some people might find all of the colors on one thing a total imposition and be kind of disgusted or revolted by it. And I thought about what it would be to just extract color. And so I did do a black painting and a white painting with all different stripes, and it's kind of amazing the variation of whites and the variation of blacks when you put them next to each other. So yeah, and I was just talking to Susan about, after all of this and being sort of like color, like what if I went on a color diet and I didn't use any color, how that would change the work or my relationship to people who were looking at it.
and your cookies too. For me, it's like you're eating a color
Yeah.
rather than a cookie and a taste. But when you go to a candy shop, you're drawn to colors. I want that neon candy. And then you're like, oh, it's lemon. I don't like lemon, for example. You know, it's just like, I think colors sometimes come first, then taste in edible art. So it was just interesting to me that in all of your pieces, you use combination of colors rather than just one color to be distinct or prominent. Everything is in relationship.
Yeah, and even when we were looking for colors for the gallery, the 2 rooms, it was quite particular about the sort of feeling that we were getting from both of them, the feeling we wanted in one room and what color was going to get that for us. So, yeah.
Do you have any other questions?
I have a question for Carole that is related to Donna's earlier questions and also to Susan's piece, which is, I love the idea that making this gesture actually like rewires us, and that we can actually like in this physiological way like retrain ourselves, and at the same time like it prompts the question for me of like the difference between, say, learned optimism and denial. Because I think we can then, convince ourselves that things are going okay, but they're really not at all. So, so I was just thinking maybe we could speak a little bit to like how we, when that rewiring is happening in a productive way versus a counterproductive. Yes, exactly.
Christine has a work where you talk about optimism on the bottom left corner. Do you want to talk about that? I thought it was wonderful.
The small puzzle side?
Yeah, we can talk about learning optimism.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like Marcelling again. And this idea out of his like thing with the dogs and the thing, and it's like a series of strategies. And basically, what he's saying is like, it's not about when times are good that you feel happy, that's what makes you an optimist. It's when you deal with the setback. And all of us deal with setback. And how you deal with that setback kind of determines like how your life will go, right? So he kind of identified like 3 dimensions of how explanatory style. So I hope I remember them all. One is about like pervasiveness. One is about like time. One is about personalization. So if something bad happens to you, how you explain it, like you personalize it. If it's a bad thing, like optimist would not personalize it. A pessimist would be like, oh, I'm a loser, right? In terms of time, they would say like, this always happens to me. And then in terms of pervasiveness, it's like everybody, people are jerks or whatever. And then, but when good things happen, like optimism would be like, oh, I worked really hard, I totally deserve this raise. I pick good partners, so good things are going to happen like over time, and then people are good. So there's all these dimensions of how you can explain things in all these different ways that if you learn these strategies, you can kind of retrain your brain to not say, I totally suck when bad things happen. That's how you can learn optimism.
I think it's a really profound philosophical question. I really do. When we can think about people who in history and in our current life face setback after setback after setback. Einstein, everybody knows the story, right? And yet continue to pursue something that had great meaning for them, and then eventually succeeded in breaking through new ground, despite the pragmatic feedback that you're going nowhere. So we step back and we go, hero, 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 And then on the other hand, we probably all know of people that live in governments that are slowly turning into persecuting governments, totalitarian governments. The early adapters see the trend, get out early. People who are optimistic stay and perish at the hand of oppression. So I don't think there's a glib answer. I really don't. I think it's a terribly difficult question. And I think that part of it really is very related to mindfulness. Is that when you're in the present moment and you let go, you're not grasping at what was, you're able to let it go and be very wise in assessing the pragmatic reality of now. We're all wired differently. Everybody in here is wired differently. Where this line between optimism and denial moves a lot. It's fluid. And I think if we're very well grounded in reality and we're wise, we use our cognitive abilities as well as our intuitive each one of us is faced with that as a philosophical life quest. What is the difference between being optimistic and being realistic, and then moving into denial? I think it's a profound question.
I have time for a couple more questions.
Mind if I stand up? I've been privileged to be able to teach art to little kids for 30 years, and you just, when you talk about what the greatest joy is, what the greatest happiness is, there isn't any greater joy than getting these little kids to do this art. But one of the things I first noticed when I started was that out of the 5-year-olds, I get this wonderful freedom and exuberance. And by the time they got to 8th grade, same kids, and I had the same kids for 9 years, you would see them just start to shut down. And it was so, I thought it was terrible, that the fact that this culture so deifies rationality that when they start becoming adults, quote unquote, they have to start shutting all that stuff down, which is terrible. And anyway, like what came to mind was the Chihuly exhibit that was here a while back. And when I first saw that, I thought, you know, what is this about? I'm trying to figure out the meaning and blah, 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 blah. And I thought, no, this is about pure joy. This is just about joy for no reason whatever. And then I just happened at the same time to be reading this book by Colin Fletcher, who decided to just walk through the Grand Canyon by himself. And someone asked him why. And I think this was one of the greatest quotes I've ever heard. He says, "I had no need for such fragile props as reasons." That's what this culture needs to hear. But anyway.
Thank you.
Yes, I have two thoughts. Well, one's sort of a thought and one's sort of a question. I guess in all the work, I think it's really interesting to see sort of the contrast between how simple happiness is when you experience it, like it's weightless, and it kind of feels like nothing, you know, it's sort of, and you know, contrastly with that, that's a word, how complicated it is and how many pieces go into reaching that feeling, and how that juxtaposition between like simplicity and complexity is reflected in a lot of the materials, like, and you know that some of the pieces look very simple, but there's a lot that is gone into them. And then my other question was for Leah about the experience of generosity, because there does sometimes in some of the works it seems like there is sort of a sub-theme of disappointment and like being unable to reach those heavy paint ribbons, or like the fact that all those cookies are gone now. Right now. Do you always feel fulfilled by these acts of generosity, or are there sometimes when you feel empty?
I think Sadie Smith wrote this joy, that if we strive towards this moment, this one goal of achieving joy or pleasure or happiness, it's going to be a miserable journey, and you have to recognize these little moments of happiness amidst, that not only exist amidst the disappointment and the anxiety and the pain, but they're just going to be little steps, little flecks along the way, but you have to be open enough to recognize them and remember them. But I mean, I think it's always, I mean, sort of like how a show goes out and comes down, there's excitement and a disappointment and a sort of, you know, relief. And sort of what makes a piece interesting is it can be really colorful and happy and still have this underlying, where it is gone or it is under glass, or to me that's true. That's just honest. But also like honest in like the attempt to please, and then realizing like what good is that for someone may not like the colors in their So yeah, I think the old anxiety.
a visualization of different emotions that are not translatable into English. And it's kind of amazing. And actually there's like a huge cluster of words for longing, for different types of longing. Well, like, yeah, it makes it like nostalgia and sadness, but also the warmth that it was experienced.
So unfortunately we've run out of time. But I would like to encourage you all to continue this conversation and to join us in the gallery afterwards. We're going to end today with a little exercise led by Carole. Before we do that, I just want to, first of all, thank all of you so much for coming today, and to thank so much the artist and Carole for participating in this conversation.
This is the study of gratitude. Great book called Thanks. Kind of a stupid cover, but a great title by Robert Young. And people are finding that by just keeping a gratitude journal, like 3 times a week, writing down before you go to bed, or when you wake up, instead of your to-do list, like downloading in your head, get it full of anxiety. Open up your eyes and think through things that you're grateful for and looking forward to. So if you would allow me to just get comfortable, this is a little gift, not as good as cookies, but to just get relaxed for a second in your chair. And while you're relaxing, I want to share a resource for you beyond, I realized it's not on there. For those of you that are interested in this work, there's an organization that's affiliated with UC Berkeley. I'm not, I'm from Stanford, I'm just telling you about this. It's called Greater Good, and it's greatergood.berkeley.edu. They have many conferences. They're hooked into everything going on in the field of positive psychology, compassion, forgiveness studies, and they're kind of a one-stop shop. I'm happy if you would contact me and put you in touch. We have an organization called CCARE at Stanford, Center for Compassion and Altruism Research and Education. We're living in really exciting times because this field is really just pioneered and blossomed. I wanted to share that before I did this. So here's a little gift to you that you can carry, and it lasts longer than cookies. So just get quiet, and you can close your eyes or keep them open if you like, but soft eyes, let your eyes sort of rest back in the sockets. And feel your body sitting in the chair, kind of supported by the seat in the back. Think how amazing it is that we even have chairs to support us. And let an image float in front of you of someone, a person, preferably a person who's still here, that you have gratitude for. Someone who has helped you along the way. Someone who has done you a kindness that may have not been expected. This could be like $1 million moment, or just in passing, but someone to whom you feel gratitude. And in your mind's eye, let this image flourish in your imagination. And imagine what this person looks like, or this being looks like. Imagine their eyes smiling at you, and you smiling back at them. And allow this feeling to grow and flourish in your body. Feeling your heart open. Susan's smile, which is now your smile. And inside yourself, say thank you. Thank you for helping me and giving me a gift along the way. And when you're ready, you can come back to the room. Slowly breathing your way back into the room, gently. That one moment and that experience is something you can carry with you when stress starts building, you feel a little fear or anxiety, to just breathe in that goodness. And what I'm going to invite you to do is, if you have a smartphone with you, to take it out. Take out your smartphone.
That's odd.
Yes. Happiness is unexpected. And if you know that person's address, or if you can email them, send them what is called a gratitext. Just briefly express to them what you would like to say in just a moment. Simple, straightforward. And notice what you're feeling as you're doing this.
So how do you gratitude grandma?
Do a grat call.
Well, she's passed away, her body's,
Write it anyway.
yeah.
Write it anyway. Because it's something that lives in you, gives you a very real positive experience. And if you don't have a smartphone or grandma's somewhere else, grandma's passed away, just think it. It's a gift to your heart, and a gift to her and her memory, and just think it. The extra special little deliciousness comes when you get the response, for those of you that have your smartphone. So this is a gift that you can take with you all the time, and when you don't have a cookie, just stop for a moment and think about what you're grateful for. Everything from this amazing gift of this person who was in your life at some point, or pet, to the fact, as we say, that you wake up and you have hot running water. Life is filled with these moments of gratitude. So, these are these little research
Thank you for the cookies.